Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Here, we integrate holistic mindfulness and evidence-based practices to support you on your unique motherhood journey. Whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant, newly postpartum, or supporting mamas in this stage of life, you'll feel empowered and informed as you embrace what lies ahead. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hey mamas, and welcome to another episode. We have Kelley Coleman on the episode with us today. And this episode is just so amazing and so interesting because she has a child that has multiple undiagnosed disabilities, and she has written a book, and she has been involved in her community, and she is just so passionate about this because she just wants every mama out there who is going through something similar to know that they are not alone, that there are things that they can do to navigate this time in their life and to know that there are solutions out there to some of the things that they might be struggling with. So she is just a wealth of knowledge in the disability community. If you are a mama too who has a child with disabilities, I hope this can be a source of knowledge for you and a place that you can find community, and reach out to her if that is something that you're interested in. So I know that you're going to gain so much from this episode. And with that, let's get this episode started. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm so excited to have you here today and get this conversation started. So how about we go ahead and you introduce yourself for the listeners?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love just this idea of entering motherhood because it is this thing we're all coming into together. My name is Kelley Coleman, and I'm a mom, a speaker, an advocate, and an author. And my book, Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child, Your Guide to the Essential Systems, Services, and Supports. Very long title. And it certainly stems from my own motherhood journey. I have two amazing boys. They're ages 12 and 10, and they're awesome and weird and wonderful and all the good things, and are just the best of friends. Our younger son has multiple disabilities, and that has absolutely shaped our mothering world. On previous episodes of your podcast, one of your guests mentioned like the first baby, instead of just being the easy baby, calling it the trick baby. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had the trick baby. When it was like, we are clearly awesome parents and we have everything figured out because our baby is eating and sleeping and he smiles a lot. And oh my gosh, we're so good at this. And then our second baby came along, who's equally as wonderful of a human, but it was challenging in so many different and unexpected ways. And we very quickly learned having a quote unquote easy baby, because you're an awesome parent, or it might be because this baby just falls in line with expectations. And, our own parenting journey has been just this exercise in, oh, these are the expectations we had, but that might not actually be based on anything. And expectations versus reality. And certainly we started on our journey of decoding and figuring out my son's disabilities when he was an infant, and there still is much to figure out with him. And so it has been a constant journey in calibrating and recalibrating a life for him and for our whole family that we had never expected. And to lean into all the parts of that, including acknowledging when it's hard, acknowledging, well, this isn't what we expected, but he's awesome. So cool. Which leads us to just evaluate and reevaluate our own bias and preconceptions and all of the things within all of his awesomeness. And he has amazing hair and loves grocery shopping and loves airplanes and swimming pools and all the things. His diagnoses include, first off, is an overall yet undiagnosed genetic syndrome. And we've done every test science has available, and we still don't know. And within that syndrome, it presents as autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, cortical vision impairment, feeding tube, microcephaly, gross motor, fine motor, cognitive, behavioral, medical. Like, he's just an overachiever. And he's like, I'm just going to check all the boxes. He's this amazing fellow who has taken this on a really unexpected journey, which has led us to fully embracing him, being allies to the disability community, and writing a book of how on earth to do all of the paperwork and the planning. I love that you talk so much about being your own person in addition to and inside of the motherhood and the parenting journey. For me, I will be my son's caregiver forever for the rest of his life and mine. And it is a full-time job. And how do we approach this when we're like, oh, this isn't just a season, this is forever? And I'm really excited that my book kind of dives into how to make this life sustainable. And I love having this conversation with folks who are really targeting and talking to parents at the beginning of this journey, whether they are wanting to be parents, expectant parents, whether they are parents already. You also talk about on your website and elsewhere all the misinformation that is out there. And when it comes to disability and in kids and in babies, like, nobody's talking about it because it's such a horrible thing. We just can't even mention that this is math and it's going to happen to a lot of people. It's not horrible. It's not tragic in the end of all things. Like, it's just Tuesday. And there is a lot of hard, but by not talking about it, it just makes everything harder for everyone. So I so appreciate you wading into this conversation because we need to empower parents with actual information and actual support, and no judgment, no politics, no any of that. But we need to have these conversations to say, what does this actually look like? What does this not look like? And how do we support each other in whatever version of this our journey is taking?
Yeah, I feel like there's so much there to unpack. Like, I love how you said like calibrating along the way and really kind of taking it like one step at a time and like really trying to understand and pivot and go in, that next degree of where you're like navigating and where you're going to kind of take it back then like 12, 13 years ago when you were entering motherhood the first time. And obviously, like, you did not know any of where you're at today was going to happen. And now, like, and I also want to like point out, like, there's always this like, oh, nobody's talking about this, but like you're talking about this and you're raising awareness about this. And I think like it's super important to acknowledge that, like, we're not nobody and like it is being talked about. And I think like when we really like say that this conversation is occurring and it's just, getting it to the people that need to know
Yeah.
and have that information to them. And that's why, like I do so much of this and I really, want people that need to hear this information to hear it. So again, like let's just kind of like go back and see like, where you were at when you were first entering motherhood and kind of like lead us through when your second son was born and what was kind of occurring and what you were seeing.
Yep. So for us, we knew we wanted to be parents, and my husband is a wonderful supportive partner and all the things. For our first child, there was a whole lot of science and IVF and all the things that went into that, which is something else that I've since learned is quite common, but nobody talks about. And we've had a bunch of miscarriages along the way. And like that's not being talked about as well. So we need to talk about all these things because they seem so much less scary when we talk about and when we hear about. So all the things. And so our first son, lots of science, and had our baby and off to the races, like we're changing diapers and staying up at night and doing the things. And it was a pretty standard, like, oh, you read a book and like that's what you do and cool. And that was also before podcasts were a thing. And man, that would have been nice in the middle of the night to just like have some earbuds and a podcast. So I love that mothers now have and parents now have this resource. Our second son was born about 19 months later. And according to our doctor, oh, you did it the cheap way this time. So yeah, it doesn't always require that much science. And we had no advance warning that there was anything different about his development, about his biology, about disability or no. We did all the standard testing. I was 35 when my first kid was born. I was 37 when my second kid was born, which constitutes a geriatric pregnancy, which is such an awesome thing to hear when you're like, I'm 35, I'm geriatric. Like, what? But yes. So there you go. So did all of the tests. Nothing turned up anything out of the ordinary. So for us, there was no suspicion of disability. And when a person has a syndrome that can't be detected even when they're 10 years old, that certainly can't be detected in utero. And I have many friends who have had different versions of the story where they have detected a disability or potential disability in utero. Our journey with diagnosis, which has been quite an odyssey, started with when our son Aaron was born, and the mom voice of like, something's going on. And no one believed me because he was passing all of the tests. And just that intuition of like, there's something going on here. And to our pediatrician's credit, I kept saying that over and over. And she, did all the tests. And she said to me, which was one of the most important things on our journey, was she said, I hear you. We will keep doing the tests. You can come to our office as often as you want. You can come every single day. You can camp out in our waiting room. We will never turn you away. We will never dismiss your concerns. We will always listen. And whether that is a pediatrician, a friend, a doula, your partner, when you find those people who will listen to your concerns, even if you end up being wrong about everything, but finding those people who will say, I will listen to you and I hear you and I will support you in that. For a pediatrician, that looked like, let's run the tests and the weight and the whatever charts of all the things. And that was so meaningful. This was all when our son was an infant that we were starting down this road. And we could tell, even as an infant, he was very different than his brother as an infant. And again, the mom's intuition was telling me, this isn't just because all humans are different, even infants and babies can be very different, but things like he was sleeping a lot. And to which many people very unhelpfully would say, aren't you lucky? And I'd say, no, he's sleeping too much. He is not waking up because he's hungry. I'm having to wake him up to feed him. When he is awake, he is screaming and crying. And we have friends whose babies had colic and even very intense colic. And I'm like, this is different. I can't put my finger on it. I am not a medical professional, but this is different. The crying, the constantly needing to be held, it was like colic plus. And I couldn't quite name it, but now I can. It was that he wasn't getting enough food. And we were trying and we were nursing and pumping and bottle feeding and like trying all the things. It is normal and to be expected that your baby will wake up because they are hungry. They will eat, some that is easy for babies, some that is hard for babies. There's all different versions of what feeding a baby can be in the spectrum of easy to hard and everything in between. And our pediatrician asked us to keep a log of everything he was eating, the times, is he nursing? Is he not? Are you bottle feeding? What's going in? And when he was about 3 months old, I took the log in and I'm like, I don't think he's eating enough. And our conversation eventually boiled down to, you're right. And you're being admitted to the hospital. Drop your toddler off at home and they're expecting you at the local children's hospital. And the drive to the hospital, like, I'm ready to cry. Even a decade later, this still makes me cry. As you know, with any hard thing, there can often be this expectation that, like, oh, you deal with it and then you move on. And as you know, like, this stuff just sits there. Even if you do talk about it and deal and move forward, it can just sit there and it's hard. And by the time he was 3 months old, hospitalized for a week for eating almost nothing, we found out that night. They're like, cool. So we'll schedule the feeding tube placement. And we were like, what? Like, first of all, what is a feeding tube? I've never heard of this before. And of course, it sounded horrifying because, like, wait, you want to put a tube in my baby, not even like my kid, but my infant. So that was scary. And it turns out a decade in, I can say with all honesty, feeding tubes actually aren't scary. And it's the thing keeping my kid alive. So cool. And just kind of being plunged into the unknown of all this was both the scariest thing and the biggest relief. As we know, when we go through however long of gaslighting about something that we know is real, and then when you finally get that validating, it is all the things and feels like all of the things. And it has been this odyssey of collecting diagnoses and watching him develop and not having a roadmap and looking at all of these books that I had read for my first kid. And like, I read all the books. I was like, library, let's do this. So I was like the pregnant lady hanging out at the library all the time. And so, of course, you feel like, oh, this is terrible because it's so bad. Nobody even talks about it. You're just like, now 10 years in, we need people with disabilities writing books about disability and talking about, and there are these incredible people online who are sharing their firsthand stories of disability. What a shift that creates when we're getting information from the people with the lived experience. Boy, that helps.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, going back to understanding your intuition and a parent's intuition, you're with your baby every day and you're seeing all the little nuances and all the little things that are going on in so much more detail than a pediatrician or any other provider is going to be able to see and understand in the, even if it's a half an hour appointment or whatever it might be, like they don't get all of those little things that you're feeling and you're seeing and that you're able to comprehend and see with your baby. And also, though, to pair that with such an understanding and supportive provider and have your pediatrician be able to be like, I get you and like I hear you and like we'll keep going and we'll keep running tests. And I think it's so important to know that, you can find a provider that is supportive in that sense. And if you're, going to your pediatrician and you're saying these things and you're not getting a response that feels aligned, like you can look for somebody else and like you can know that, it's not something to dismiss when you're having these feelings and you're understanding like something is going on with my child that they need additional support and help. Like that's huge that you were able to really like see that and understand that at such an early stage. And even how you were saying, it's not like baby to baby, like every child is different. There's,
Mhm.
like we even say like between like our daughter and our son, they're 2 years apart. And there's definitely like very, like distinct differences, just like developmentally and things like that. But like to be able to really say like, okay, it's beyond that. It's beyond just baby to baby, child to child, whatever it might be. Now your son is 10. Obviously, that is a length of a journey to explore and navigate. And so when did you really start to feel like, I'm sure it's like a never ending journey, but like more of like okay, like we can really do this and
Yes.
like we're going to be able to work
Yes.
through this.
Yes. And well, exactly what you just said, the like feeling of we can do this. And by this, I mean fully support our child as himself and as a disabled person and fully figure out what this means for our family and embrace all the things. Like loving him and how much we loved him was like, that's not a question. But the feeling of total inadequacy is super real and feeling like, I don't know how to navigate all of the social service and the paperwork and the insurance. Oh my gosh, the insurance. I can definitely look at different points in time when it felt like I'm chipping away at that inadequacy. And even a decade in, there are days, and even like I have a book and I like, we're pretty good at this. There are days when I'm like, last night I was like cleaning up vomit off all the things in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I don't got this. I don't know what I'm doing. And then my kids woke up this morning and they're psyched to go to school and we're like chasing the dog. And I'm like, oh, I totally got this. So it varies. The points in the journey when things absolutely shifted were often the points when I connected with other people who are in the situation of being a parent caregiver. Caregiving is a job in addition to parenting, and it is a job. And all of the, placing the diaper order for my 10-year-old, making sure we got the right seizure meds from the pharmacy. Cause boy, that one time we didn't, I raised a fuss. All the school stuff, the everything. It is a job. And looking at when my son was just under a year old and I really connected with, I went to a therapy intensive thing and connected with one mom in particular who was already on this journey, was a little bit ahead of us, is still one of my best friends to this day, contributed one of the many amazing letters from other parents that are part of this book. Connecting with that one person where it really felt like I am not alone on this journey, even though it can feel real isolating. And even with my husband being a great partner in the process, it still feels isolating. Connecting with others, finding specialists where we feel like they are including us as partners in the process and allowing us to fully participate as the experts, as you said, on our child. And I might not be the expert on neuro-ophthalmology or genetics, but I'm the expert on this kid, and finding the people who will really work with me to put our expertise together. When my child went to school was a wonderful turning point, partly because, of course, for any parent, there's the wonderful emotion of sending your child off. But there's also I have some free time for the first time in a while, especially for those of us who are choosing to leave careers, put careers on hold, all the things. I had to very quickly walk away from my career being at a great point because my child's support needs far outpaced the number of hours in the day. So when he was in school, and having a little bit of space that I could dedicate to finally setting up all of these systems and putting those in place was a huge help. And being able to continue those connections. And when I was able to set up systems to make the paperwork and the planning and all the executive functioning of the caregiving job easier, has been such a turning point. And really looking at caregiving as a job and knowing that whether writing a book or doing his school paperwork or whatever the thing is that I'm doing, really accepting that because of his support needs and his medical needs, especially, I need to be able to answer my phone, get a call that something's going on or see something's going on with him. And I have to be able to walk away from everything for perhaps months at a time, and to figure out a way to still be a person within all of that, which will be a forever process of figuring that out and just kind of making peace with that and figuring out what systems I need in place to make it sustainable. So it's a journey.
Yeah. What has been your most useful system or thing that you practice on a more so like daily basis to help you with navigating everything?
Yes. For me, it's been, again, viewing this as a job and the simple act of blocking out time on my calendar to do the things. I never want to call my insurance company ever, but I have to more often than most people. And I've committed to, if I put it on my calendar during this block of time, I have to do that thing. I'm not scrolling. I'm not eating 1,200 snacks, which sometimes I do, and snacks are lovely, but I am doing the thing. And the list of stuff will never go away, but it doesn't feel as overwhelming anymore because I have just declared I need to schedule the time, I need to protect that time, and I need to make good on doing the things. You'll never become an expert on all of this overnight, perhaps ever, but scheduling little bits of time to do it allows it to be manageable.
Yeah. What was your, if you don't mind me asking, what was your previous career and what was that like, making that decision to be your son's full-time caregiver? And at what point did you do that?
So I love that you asked this because, and as you talk about in other episodes, like the importance of who we are as humans, in addition to parenting, and is our definition of quote unquote being a good parent and a good mom totally giving up on all versions of ourselves other than caring for our children, our spouse, our home life? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. No, I'm going to say no to that. That we need to be people in addition to that. My previous career, which is ridiculous but awesome, is I got paid to come up with ideas for talking animal movies. And so I could tell you what a polar bear would say to a penguin, but like I have no real world skills whatsoever. So yay for that. But certainly coming from a writing and creative career and point of view and storytelling and way of approaching the world, I was at a high point in my career when all of the dominoes were falling in this direction. And when the reality set in that, again, my son's support needs because of his disabilities and especially all the medical stuff that was really going on at the time, it didn't even feel like a decision to make to walk away. I'm fortunate that in our family, our priorities have always been quite clear. I've never honestly felt like resentment or guilt or whatever for walking away, because it never felt like a choice I had to make. It just felt like this is the answer, period. Are there things about it I miss? Absolutely. Do I miss, working with a bunch of wonderful, quirky, interesting, talented artists and coming up with movie ideas? Yeah, because that's fun. I know people who have walked away from many different types of careers or who have shifted careers or have taken a pause because that is what life required. And I realized many years in that what I was missing wasn't even that specific career exactly as it looked. I was missing being my own person, having something to talk about other than the parenting stuff, other than the disability stuff, the caregiving stuff. And I was like, man, I used to be the fun friend. And now, like, do you want me to tell you about government benefits? Because that's all I talked about all day for the last week. I'm like, man, like that wears on you. And I shifted into writing books instead of screenplays because for me, that was something that could be sustainable and doable on my schedule in a way that worked for what my life and my priorities were. Everybody who has kids knows priorities shift. I remember I used to feel like, oh, I have no time. I have no time to do the things. As I'm going to yoga class every day and brunch with my friends and walking the dog and like all the things. And I'm like, I had all the time in the world. And the reality is, those things were the priority then. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's great. But my priorities have shifted. And I think when we can really look at all of the things and say, what is my priority right now? It certainly takes a lot of the questioning or the guilt or the shame or the what am I doing? And saying, like, you know what? My priority today, I checked all those boxes. And like, I can be really proud of that. And there are days when I feel like I need to get back into writing and being creative and scheduling time to write, just like I schedule time to, check all the boxes for my son's therapy appointments. But reaching the point when I can schedule that time for myself and figuring out what I need for myself to put into those blocks of time has shifted everything, but also has allowed me to feel like a person and write a book, occasionally see friends and sometimes even be the fun friend.
Yeah. Are there any specific things that you very much enjoy doing when you do have that free time? What are you putting in those blocks?
Sleep, always sleep every time. I cannot do anything if I have not slept, and man, I go through, like, literally sometimes years where I'm like, "I am not sleeping enough." So everybody who's sleeping in your free time, yes, that. For me, it was diving into the book world and, working on and figuring out what the next books will be. So for me, writing is a huge part of that, but also just creating things for the pure fun and enjoyment of, you know what? I'm gonna sew a handbag. I love sewing. I'm gonna make weird Halloween costumes for my kids. Halloween is like the holiday for us. And so it's March and my kids are already like, we gotta figure this out. Come on, like we need a plan. So whether it's the Halloween costumes or the handbags or doing something purely for fun, as a parent, it was weird digging a hole in the backyard because one of our weird children decided that would be fun and it's oddly fun. Or whether it's just doing something on my own or a hike or taking an exercise class or watching a TED talk or whatever the thing is, but really looking at kind of redefining self-care. And self-care doesn't have to be an indulgent spa day and a salad. Like, great. Some days, yes. Other days, that makes me want to cry. So, no. But self-care as what are the things that make you feel like the version of yourself that you most want to be?
Mm.
That's self-care. Sometimes it is checking things off of my to-do list. And that's taking care of myself. Other days, it is just sitting and staring at the wall or wandering around Target. Cool. Wandering around Target. Self-care. Check. Maybe getting a pedicure. Like whatever the thing is, if you are feeling like this is the person I want to be,
Mm.
then it checks that self-care box and maybe you're figuring out who that person is that you want to be, especially within this motherhood and parenting journey. And just like make a note to yourself when you do a thing that you're like, that's me in there. That's how we land on this is who I want to be
Mm.
within all of this.
Yeah, I think, so much of what you just said there is so important. And it really is like finding your own unique path and what lights you up and what you want to follow and what you believe in. Because you can listen to podcasts all day, you can read all the books, follow all the people on Instagram. But if you're not finding something that truly resonates with you and your path, and you're just trying to mimic, what other people are doing, you're never going to feel that like full sense of completion and alignment. And so I think it's important to like see all these different examples and take information from different sources, but being able to tweak it and find out what really works for us and understand like it's not going to be cookie cutter, it's not going to, replicate somebody
Yeah.
exactly, but that's the beauty of it. And I think like that's what I encourage a lot of moms to, a lot of parents just in general too, like to find, what's making you click and what's making you be the mother that you want to be or be the parent that you want to be. So I definitely feel that 100%.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I think even thinking about being the person you want to be within the hard season, not because it has to pull me out of this hard season. Like, you don't always get to choose when that ends. Sometimes, like in my case, like that just never ends. And who my kid is as a human isn't the hard. The hard is all the stuff. Who can you be and how can you be that person even within the hard season? And knowing that even within the hard, that doesn't go away is really lovely.
Yeah. What kind of community have you found, even before writing the book, but more so since you wrote the book, and where can, people who are looking for other parents who are really navigating this life with a disabled child to find somebody that they click with, that they can talk to and connect with, and the importance of community really surrounding that.
Yes, the community piece is huge, even if you don't think you need it, which I didn't for ages. I was wrong, wrong, wrong. Everybody does. For many of us, we don't know anyone who is going through this. And it can feel like such a cloud because you feel like you are the only one. And even Googling, you know, disability Indianapolis or special needs is a term that is falling out of favor because the disability community is saying, like, no, no, use the word disabled. But because special needs is still a term that is out there, Google special needs Dayton and parents of special needs kids, disabled kids, Dayton, like wherever you are. It can be so helpful to connect with local resources. Also, every state has, and many have multiple parent and training information centers. And those are often run by other parents who are on this journey. And they can really help you with finding out what services and supports are available in your area, in your
Mhm.
state. It is even under the same federal guidelines. It is all wildly different from one state to the next, often from one county or neighborhood to the next. And so connecting with people anywhere is great. Connecting with local people is essential because you need to know what supports are available, whether that is a support group for you, whether that is a support that your child can access at school, because that is part of the state's program, but really looking at connecting with organizations, groups on social media can be a lifeline. Don't be afraid to wade into and connect. There are some groups that I've joined online, and I'm like, oh, you guys are a bunch of complainers who are just like knocking each other down every chance you get. Like, we are all on the same team. What is happening here? I'm leaving that group. And then you find another group and you feel like, oh, my people, cool. And it helps if you connect people with your child's diagnosis. And also, don't be afraid to connect with families whose children might have a different diagnosis. Our son has an undiagnosed genetic something. So we've really waded into other communities that have been wonderful. The Down syndrome community, I'm like, who are you magical people who have just found connection? And whether or not you have all the answers, you are willing to dive into all of the things, even though my kid doesn't have Down syndrome. So don't be afraid to dig a little bit, Google a lot, and find the people who you connect with and feel good connecting with, because man, they will be everything.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who is maybe just finding out that they have a diagnosis? Maybe they're still pregnant. Like, what would be like final like words of wisdom or piece of advice that you would really want them to know or hear?
Yes. First of all, however you are feeling, validate that. And there's no,
Mm.
oh, you should feel this way. If somebody tells you this is terrible and that doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. If somebody tells you this is wonderful and that doesn't resonate with you, that is also okay. However you are feeling, and for many of us, it is this combination of the rug has been pulled out from under us, and this must be awful because everybody's telling you, in our case and in many cases, how awful this is. We had no knowledge. I was mostly ignorant about anything related to disability, and I felt terrible. And I felt like that feeling is forever. Know that if you are feeling like that, you will feel better. This feeling is not forever. And wherever you are in the journey of finding this out or even a suspicion of something, there is so much judgment out there. There are a lot of total strangers, as well as people you know, who will tell you exactly what to do and what they think. Take a step back from the judgment. Ask yourself what information you need and what support you need. If you can access actual information, it is less scary. If you can access support that is going to make you feel better, not worse. If it makes you feel worse, it's not support. Then you can put together real information with real support to build your journey with no judgment for you and your family in whatever form this takes. And man, if I had real information and real support at the beginning, I had an incredibly supportive husband and partner, and we needed the world to catch up to us and to teach us who our son is and will be. And he was the biggest teacher of all and still is on that journey.
Yeah. I guess like also to that, like what can you say to someone that maybe is like listening to this that doesn't have a disabled child but knows somebody that does? Or like what can you say to how we can be supportive for people that we know that are in that situation?
Statistically speaking, either you or someone you know is in the situation of having a child who is disabled and or being disabled themselves. Many disabilities are not visible. We wouldn't know. So we already know disabled people. Whether or not they have shared that information with us, it is their choice. They do not have to share their personal medical information. Listen, validate, ask questions. If someone tells you, my baby is disabled, my child, my teenager, whatever, if you get the look of pity on your face and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know how you're going to do this, that is 100% unhelpful always. The God only gives special children to special people, you're a superhero, also unhelpful, because that might feel shaming to me when I'm like, I'm like a superhero. I don't know where my pants are. I'm cleaning vomit out of my hair, and all I've eaten is cereal out of the box for the last week. Boy, I'm failing. Ask people, how is that for you? How are you doing? I'm not in that situation, but I want to be helpful to you. Can I buy you a fancy coffee? The answer is yes. Buy them a fancy coffee. Great. It is okay to say, I want to know how you are feeling so that I know how to respond. I am figuring out how to support you because I want to support you. If you have any ideas, let me know. If you don't, cool. Because I'm going to keep coming to you with ideas and I am going to keep showing up. There are many people who will drop out because it is just too hard for them to hear that your child is disabled.
Mm.
And it can be devastating when people who you thought would show up for you are just like, peace out, can't do this. This is horrible. And now you need to manage my fragile emotions. Nope, can't manage your fragile emotions. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go to the park. We're going to go on the swings because that's what you do with my child. And it's okay to say that you don't know what to say. Say, and I am here for you. Let's figure out what that looks like.
Awesome. I love that. So, where can we reach you, get in contact with you? Where can we get the book? Give us all the details.
Yes, the book is available at all the book places, Amazon, Target, your local bookseller. It's called Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child. We need this in every library, doctor's office, and educator, social worker's office. We all need access to information, and my website has all the social media and the events and everything, and that's kelleycoleman.com, and that's Kelley, Coleman.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been a very insightful conversation. And I feel like, I learned a lot. And I feel like there's a lot of resources and everything in your book that is providing families in the situation that they need. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all that you are doing to really help parents and moms to carve out this space of looking at all of the things all at once, because parenting is all the things.
Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. we're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.